Another day, another dollar as I holler to the world. I love the way I'm living, love the Gucci, love the girls, love the parties and the clubs, love the models and hot tubs, love the German engineering set on deep dish dubs. Another tour around the world, entertaining the fans. I love walking through the airport, taking pictures, shaking hands. Every day for me's an oyster, crack it open, find a pearl. I love the way I'm living, is what I holler to the world.
I'm Dwayne Swayze, and as always, I'm here with my close friend and wrestling icon. You know the accolades, a trailblazer in the ring, former United States champion, tag champion, and the first ever IWGP Intercontinental Champion. You also know him as one of the masterminds behind the Hurt Syndicate. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only MVP.
So, I'm very excited about this. I welcome you back to joining us. Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze, episode 2. We had such a great time last time.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it was just our natural chemistry or the Devil's River agave bourbon, but this stuff is great. But how about a toast to episode 2 of Marking Out? Thank you for coming back. Hopefully you'll stick around and continue to watch these episodes as we bring them to you weekly. I guess one of the things I love about this is the organic inspiration for this show.
Right.
And if you're tuning in for the first time, Dwayne Swayze is a very good friend of mine. If you're a fan of mine and been a longtime fan, you've heard the music that we've made together for quite some time. And during those times in the studio or car rides to wherever we were, going to perform, Dwayne is a passionate wrestling fan, and he would often ask me questions about what happened behind the scenes or why does this happen or who does this. So at the end of the day, I had this idea, we should make this into a show. And we now have this YouTube show called Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze, where he asks all of the questions that you would ask your best friend if your best friend was a professional wrestler.
And I promise you guys, the first 20 minutes of every studio session is just what we're about to show you guys. All right, so Pete, here's where I'd like to start today.
Okay.
So how much input does a wrestler have on their character and what they can do on TV?
Okay. Again, that question has multiple layers to it because it depends on where you work, how much time you've had in the business, your respect level. I can say that, for example, at WWE, during my time there, because their model has changed where now they are hiring a lot of collegiate athletes, teaching them how to wrestle. So I don't know how many of those athletes are coming up with character ideas and pitching them, or how many of them are being given characters from the creative side. And generally speaking, during my time, you would come up with a character and pitch it. And if the creative team saw something in it, then you would get an opportunity to make it up to TV. And when I got hired by WWE, I invented MVP. As a matter of fact, I had a number of tryouts. I've been booked as an extra a number of times. And one day, my frustration just got to a point where I was like, to hell with this, man. And I went to the vice president of talent relations, who was at that time was John Laurinaitis. And I went, hey, Johnny, you got a minute? He said, oh, I'm busy, kid. And he kept walking. I said, Johnny, can I get a minute? Can I get 30 seconds? Just 30 seconds. And he stopped. He goes, okay, kid, you got 30 seconds. And I said, tell me what the fuck I got to do to get hired here, man. Tell me what you want. You tell me what you want from me, and I'll give it to you. And initially, he was taken aback, like, who are you talking to me like that?
You talking to me.
But he saw it was coming from a passionate place. And he said, kid, we like characters. He said, give us a character that you can do that we don't already have and get back to me. And he walked off. And I remember feeling like, that wasn't the answer I was looking for. Like, tell me specifically, but he gave me the answer. And at that time, I was working on South Beach. I was doing bodyguard work, nightclub security at Mansion at the time.
Oh, Mansion.
And, yeah. And I used to see these professional athletes show up to the club, and I would see like Hall of Fame legends like Shaq, Dr. J, Barry Sanders, who is not a club guy, but just randomly he was at living room one night, and he hung out most of the time outside for a long time talking to me about football. And I would see these like, sports gods show up, and they were so humble and so cool. And then I would see like these third round draft picks show up with a whole entourage full of people in shorts and sneakers. And this is man, do you know who I am? And it sometimes was kind of embarrassing, like, dude, stop, man, stop, And it was, this was during the time of show me the money, and you had Ocho. Jerry Maguire, yeah, and you had Ocho Cinco, and you had all of these. There was no shortage of information, footage, news from athletes on ESPN that were extravagant, boisterous, acting out, Ron Artest going into the crowd to fight somebody, yeah, right. Famously, one of my all-time, I'm a Canes fan, but I'm a big Georgetown Hoyas fan. So Allen Iverson, practice? You talking about practice?
Yeah.
That had never been done in professional wrestling. It was a relatively new phenomenon. And I took my experiences from South Beach and ESPN and whatnot, and I crafted this character called MVP, Montel Vontavious Porter. And I wrote up a treatment with chapters and everything, explaining who the character was, photos of me in a suit, how the character dressed. And this came because, fortunately for me, Ricky Santana was a very good friend of mine. And if you don't know who Ricky Santana is, he's a guy from the territories back in the day. Look him up. He worked at WCW for a while as well. And he and John Laurinaitis were very good friends. When Ricky was an over guy in the territories, John slept on his couch. And I told Ricky, I said, man, I got this idea, but I'm scared they'll steal it from me. Ricky said, I give you my word. I pitched him the idea, and he said, man, that smells like money to me. He called Johnny. Johnny gave him his word. We won't rip the kid off. I spoke to Johnny, and Johnny said, it sounds great. Give me 20 storyline ideas. So I literally I wrote 20 vignettes and storyline. So I sent like a whole treatment.
And how long was this after you and John Laurinaitis' convo?
Days.
Really?
When he said,
Quick.
get back to me, put something together and get back to me, I jumped on it because, preparation, they say success is where preparation and opportunity meet. So the opportunity is there. Now do the preparation. So within, I'd say a week or two, I had this thing ready for him, and they loved it. And I actually spoke in last episode about Vince seeing the promo that I sent in with that package that made them say, get this guy hired. So in my case, I had a lot of input because I was the guy that pitched MVP to them. They liked the MVP concept. They got it. They understood it right away. And the fact that I pitched so much storyline content and ideas, the writers loved it because it made their job easier.
So MVP is your intellectual property.
And MVP is my intellectual property.
Okay.
And I'll say this, man, to the credit of WWE, Vince, John Laurinaitis, the people who were in control when I came in, if they wanted to, they could have taken it from me. They could have said, sign it over to us. Because I had no leverage, But for whatever reason, they chose not to. And they allowed me to maintain ownership of Montel Vontavious Porter MVP. They never tried to muscle me out of it. So I've been able to make a career off of MVP and not the guy formerly known as, I didn't have to switch from MVP to VIP or, whatever.
The Boston superstar.
Yeah, so I'll always be grateful for that. But if Vince had an idea for you, then that was it.
Okay.
One of the things that comes to mind is LA Knight and Maximum Male Models.
Right.
But he was able to shake that off, overcome it, and now he's wildly over, which is great. I always said this about Vince in that regard. He's a home run hitter. When he strikes out mightily.
So let's
gobbledygooker.
Let's talk about a strikeout with you, but with your gear.
So that gear, let's talk about that. I had a meeting. So initially, you have to remember at this time, Under Armour was a relatively new company and was a baby company. Around that time, Nike had just released Dry Fit, and it was the new thing that a lot of athletes were wearing. The whole concept of the, like a lot of athletes weren't wearing leggings yet. It wasn't a new thing. Tight fitted gear that would whisk the sweat away from your body and all that. So I saw that and I wanted to incorporate that into the Uber athlete MVP character. And again, they got it. So me, Vince, Laurinaitis, and one of the seamstresses, who I won't say her name, but I have a lot of animosity towards her. She was shady. She did some shady things. But Creative Services, who are the people that do the art concept and whatnot for WWE, they came out with this really cool design based on kind of like the Under Armour Nike Dry Fit concept that I came up with. And I said, if Deion Sanders was able to design his own football uniform, what would it look like? That was kind of, where I came from. So the day of my debut, I walked by the seamstresses area and I saw the outfit, the one I debuted in. I saw it on the table, and
For the first time?
first time ever. It was the first time I saw it. And that was not what Creative Services had drawn up. It looked nothing like it at all. And I'm looking at it, and I said, this has got to be a rib, right? They're just testing me. They're testing me, So I walked past it, and I look, and she goes, all right, here's your outfit. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll be back in a little while. I'm like, all right, there we go. And then I'm walking around, and later on I see Laurinaitis. He goes, hey, kid, you like your outfit? You try it on yet? And I'm like, I know they're ribbing me now. They just want to see me walk around in it, So I put it on, I got it, and I'll never forget. I was in the dressing room, and I come out of the bathroom with it on, and Booker T and Chavo Guerrero were sitting there. And Booker T and I had we had hit it off pretty well. Chavo, I didn't really know yet, Booker and Chavo, they look and they both start going. And I'm like, okay, now there's confirmation this is a rib. Yeah. They're just trying to get a laugh out of me. Okay. So I went, I told Laurinaitis, I said, all right, man. He said, what do you think? I said, oh, yeah, sure, John, it's great. When do I get my real outfit? He goes, what do you mean? I said, no, like the outfit I'm actually going to debut in. Like, okay, this is a rib. I get it. I'll walk around wearing this. But where's the outfit that we had the meeting about, that we talked about? I said, that's it. I said, okay, they're messing with me. They're messing with me. He goes, no, kid, no one's messing with you. That's the outfit. You don't like it? And I remember I said, I didn't want to give anything away yet. Like, come on. I said, are you serious? This is the outfit? I said, John, I don't look like a elite. Like, I look like Brian Boitano, man. This is something a figure skater would wear, not an elite level combat athlete, So I said, man, can I at least cut the sleeves off or something? And he goes, well, let's go talk to Vince about it. I said, yeah, let's go talk to Vince. So we walk, and as we're going to talk to Vince, we bump into Batista, who now, very good friend of mine. Like, he's a brother to me. I didn't even know him yet. And Batista looks at it and he goes, what's with this? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And he goes, man, the guy's got some big arms, shoulders, or maybe cut the sleeves off or something. And I said, yeah, that's what I was just saying. Well, we're going to go see what Vince thinks. And Batista's just like, okay. And we go, and as I walk up to Vince, I see Vince's face change, and he smiles, and he goes, I love it. And I'm like, oh, no. He goes, your ego's going to get that over.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, Vince, can I cut the sleeves off or something? And he goes, no, that's it. That's great. And at that point, I'm like, oh, well, if you like it, if you love it, then I love it too. I'm going to make it work. I hated that outfit. Despised that outfit. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll find out exactly what happened to that outfit. Yes. And it was very gratifying to me what happened to that outfit. But that was the outfit that I made my debut in. Vince wanted me to wear that. But if you'll notice over time, I finally got it around to where it became the outfit that I had the vision for, where I blatantly ripped off Under Armour, where I had to protect this ring down the arm. And I went to that same seamstress later on, and I gave her a picture of something that, he had a contract with Adidas, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at the time. I can't think of his name, but he had on something, and I said, this is what I want. This, not that Bud Light can that this. And that's how the later outfits came to be, which were mine. So typically, a lot of younger talent coming into a company, unless they've already established who their character is, don't always have a lot of say. But again, it depends on where you work. If you're at AEW, Tony Khan is, he's a lot more hands-off in terms of how the talent want to dress or express themselves in terms of their on-screen character. He might have notes for you, but generally when he hires you, he sees what he likes and he wants more of that. Okay. With WWE, it tends to be more restrictive because they're a lot more hands-on with what they do and how they want it to be. But in my case, I was fortunate that I had to live through that initial nightmare of just horrid figure skating outfits, and then we got into what I wanted to be. So
down the line, I want to get into Montel Vontavious Porter and how that came about. But I know we
well, I had a vision. They saw the vision. They were on board with my vision, and they allowed that vision to develop into what ended up being the final version of MVP with the nose, the breathe rights with the receiver's gloves and that whole thing. And it came together step by step. Like, here's a quick thing for you. The receiver's gloves came about because we were in Atlanta when me and Matt Hardy were doing our bit. And we had a backstage bit where we had to do like a little football contest. So I sent some runners out to go get the receiver's gloves, and they just happened to pick out black and white receiver's gloves, and I was wearing black, white, and silver that day.
Oh, okay.
And it fit perfectly.
Right on.
The breathe right strip, I just picked up because athletes were doing it. I know Booker T had been doing it before that, but he wasn't the inspiration for it as much as just athletes who were doing it. And then I started color coordinating them to match. And, the evolution of MVP from, as JBL, the Bud Light can, as I said, the Brian Boitano figure skater outfit slowly evolved into the MVP outfit that became the signature that everybody generally came to know and love.
So, Pete, how does a wrestler manage injuries while staying on the road and performing regularly?
All right, let's dive into that one. As I like to do, because I absolutely love and miss the late great Iron Sheik. Dwayne Swayze, you excellent question.
Thank you, Sheiky baby. Yeah.
So as we know, being a professional wrestler, I'm always annoyed by non-wrestling fans who go, that fake stuff, because you can't fake gravity. And when you fall down for a living, whether you get injured or whether there's the cumulative damage of falling down, you get a couple 250-pound guys or a couple 130-pound women tossing each other around in the ring, and accidents happen. People will get hurt. Historically, back in the days before there were contracts and doctors and trainers on the road, you were responsible for your own medical health. And if you got hurt, there was no contract to guarantee you money while you were out convalescent. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid. And you had to pop a bunch of ibuprofen and put an ACE wrap on it and rely on that guy you're working with to get you through the night. Which is tragically how at one point the addiction of so many guys to pain pills came into play, because you'd have a legitimate injury that you're taking pain pills to manage so you can get through work. And these things are highly addictive. And, guys, when I started in the pro wrestling business, sadly, pills permeated it. I begrudgingly give a shout out to the wellness program for eliminating that from wrestling culture. Because when I started, you'd hear the pills in the locker room, and it was just a thing. Everybody was into it. Excuse me, not everybody, but a lot of people. And the younger guys were influenced by the older guys because it got to a point where it wasn't even pills for pain management. It was pills because that was the thing. So younger guys would want to impress the older guys and like, hey, brother, look what I got. Or I remember, I can't think of who said it. It was a joke, but what's the worst sound to a professional wrestler? And he shook an empty pill bottle.
Oh,
There's no rattle. And I was like, I get that. Fortunately, that was never my thing. I've always been a weed and whiskey guy. I've tried everything, but
there's a rumor that you used to write checks for whatever wellness program.
when the wellness policy started at WWE initially, they only tested for steroids, hard drugs. They didn't test for cannabis. And then they, as I recall, my memory might be a little off, but all the pillheads started complaining, well, those guys get to smoke weed and we got it. So then they added cannabis, but it wasn't a suspension or a fine. It was just $1,000 fine. Well, at that point, I was on the rocket ship. I was making ridiculous money, especially for me at that time. And I said, all right, so if they test us once a month and the fine is $1,000, so that would be $12,000 a year. I went to John Laurinaitis. I said, can I just give you a $12,000 check for the year and just pay in advance? Because I'm going to smoke.
So this is true.
There's a true story. I'm going to smoke. And then eventually they bumped the fine up to $2,500. And it was me and three other guys who, I won't bring their names up, but we used to check to see who was in first place. And finally, after a couple $2,500 fines, plus the numerous $1,000 fine, man, I could have bought a new car for these fines for weed. So I finally stopped smoking for a while. But getting back to the original question, the business has changed a lot, where now these major companies like AEW and WWE, they have a full-time medical staff that travels on the road. So first of all, if you get hurt and you sustain an injury while in the ring, they pay for your medical expenses. WWE sends you to Birmingham, Alabama, where you work with some of the premier sports athlete medical doctors on the planet. I just started with AEW, so I'm not fully familiar with how their internal thing works for in-ring injuries, but I'm pretty sure it's similar. I do know that behind the scenes, AEW and WWE both have full-time doctors. They have full-time training staff, and earlier in the day, you can go in and get worked on if you need, if you have an injury or a nagging area, to get your back worked on, or maybe you pulled a hamstring and they'll work on it. So you have a full-time medical staff that works with you to help you get through those nagging injuries that aren't enough to keep you from performing, but enough to just be a hindrance. And if you do sustain a major injury, then right away, they take you out, they make sure that you get surgery, you get rehab, you're taken care of. And during this time, because you have a contract, you're still being paid while you're out. Right. Like back in the old days, if you didn't, like I said, if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. Nowadays, you have a guaranteed contract. So while you're out, you're still getting paid while you're convalescing, you get your rehab, all of that is covered. But there's no way to be a full-time professional wrestler without getting banged up. And now I think it's a little bit different too, because you don't have the live event schedule that was around when I was working, where you're working 4 or 5 nights a week. And I don't care how safe and how conservative in the ring you are, if you're bumping 4 or 5 nights a week, you're going to get beat up. You're going to get banged up.
And I wanted to ask you, along with that, you've got 276 days on the road that you shared with me in a previous episode. But
that was my busiest year.
That was your busiest?
Busiest year.
But then you also got staying in shape. So what's happening in the ring, taking those bumps, and then getting into the gym and then working out, you might pull something in the gym.
Sure.
About that. Is that going to be covered? Or?
No, if that happens, you say it happened in the ring. If you get hurt working out at the gym, you go to work and you afterwards you go, oh man, I think I tore my bicep in the ring tonight, you know, and you let the billionaires pay for it. But that's one thing that hasn't changed from then till now. You are still responsible for maintaining your physique. You're still responsible for keeping yourself in shape, because, you know, I always laugh at, you know, these couch potatoes that I can do that. Like, bro, you can't run around the block, you know, but you're going to go in there and you're going to do a 12-minute TV pace match. Shut your fat ass up. You ain't doing nothing, you know. But you have to maintain a level of physical fitness, and you have to take care of your body. And I remember hearing about years ago at WCW, Diamond Dallas Page used to, after his matches, he would have ice bags on his elbows, his shoulders, his knees. He would be all iced up. And guys used to mock him and laugh at him and tease him. But he was way ahead of the curve. You look at DDP today, he's a big yogi, he's in great shape, he's, you know.
We are all doing DDP yoga now.
And some of the guys used to mock him and you know, make jokes about him icing down after a match and stretching and cooling down. Those guys are a mess. They're beat to hell. So we've learned through the years that you are responsible for your maintenance. You're responsible. I remember RVD used to have like 30-minute stretching sessions before his match. I used to see him in the back. He had his own, like, they would trap, you know, he put it in the truck, but he had his own little mats that he would lay down, and he had a regimented stretching session that I swear it was 20, 30 minutes before his match. I don't ever remember RVD being hurt.
Are the hotel gyms good enough, you know, especially to keep up like with your physique?
It's case-by-case basis. I know a lot of guys are gym freaks. They need to get to a Gold's Gym or what have you. I've always been a guy that, you know, my physical appearance, dude, I'm a pendulum. If I'm really focused on like a jiu-jitsu tournament and I'm training hard, I'm in great shape. I like smoking weed, drinking beer, eating pizza. So there have been times when, dude, I walked out there looking like a chewed up piece of bubble gum, you know, and I know that. I can still do 15 minutes, you know, but physically I didn't always look my best. But I know through the years from just training since I got my first weight bench when I was 11. So I had Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and I was one of those weird kids that was buying protein at the mall at 12. What do you got in there? You know, so I know how to work out. So for me, a good hotel gym, I can get a great workout in. You know,
I remember. Let me know if you remember this. We were working on some music, or writing some songs, and was at your house in Houston. And I believe this was the Hakeem Olajuwon like pad, right? Beautiful palatial estate.
I used to live in Hakeem Olajuwon's old house in Houston. The first house I bought in Houston was Hakeem Olajuwon's old house at Northgate Forest. And at the time, I was young, making more money than I'd ever seen in my life. And I bought this 6,800 square foot house with a 600 square foot pool house. And if you go on YouTube and look at the Holla to the World video, that's the house from, so, and I had my own gym in there, yada, yada, yada. But
we worked out in that gym, and I was trying to figure out how to work out and everything else. And I remember we were flipping a tire next to maybe hour and a half in, and I couldn't tell. I was like, is he trying to kill me? I got nothing to do with no rap music. Anyway, I remember I got to the point I was about to throw up, and then I just felt like leaving Earth, and I get up, and I'm turned around, and it was like, not in the pool. And he took me towards the bush, because I was right over the pool, and I just was like,
don't throw up in the pool.
Do you remember that?
I do, now that you mention it, yeah. I'm like, no, not in the pool, not in the pool.
I never worked out that hard in my life. I was like, is he trying to kill me, man?
No, actually, it's not to the question, but as a little bonus, if you will. The way that I used to stay in shape, at that time I was wrestling in New Japan, and in my backyard I had a tire from a tractor trailer, and I had this whole routine put together, and it would take me, I would flip the tire, I would do box jumps on and off the tire, I had a mace.
Jumps. That's
Well,
very
tire
Spanish.
jumps.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, as we like, box jump your way out this triangle choke. I would do the box jumps on and off the tire. I would hit it with the mace. Then I would drag it down, and I would do it back. And then I had the rope where I would pull it, and I would set a 15-minute time limit to complete it. And on my best day, I could get it done by like 11 minutes. And then I'd be so exhausted and be so hot, I would literally just fall into the pool and just, you know. And when I would come home from New Japan from my tour, I would, and this is embarrassing to admit, but I will tell you, I would get an ounce of weed, my bong, I'd order a pizza with pepperoni, mushroom, extra cheese. I would swing through CVS, was right down the street, and I would get 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's fish food and what is that? Poppycock, which is this, it's like Cracker Jack, but a little bit better because it has macadamia nuts or pralines, whatever. And I would put all that in the house, and I would camp out on my couch for the next 2 or 3 days, smoking out, eating absolute garbage. I was probably in a diabetic coma and didn't know it. And then when it was time to go back to Japan, and I knew, okay, back, I would take 3, 4 days before it was time to go, and I go back in the backyard and I do that routine and I get myself through. So I knew if I could get through that routine, I got a 20-minute match in me, no problem.
Okay.
So that's why for a lot of people, it was ridiculously hard. For me, it wasn't as hard because I was conditioned. I was making sure that I was conditioned to be able to do a 20-minute match.
So for all those MVP fans who see me and say, "Oh man, I haven't seen you wrestle in a long time," I've never wrestled a day in my life, and that workout routine proves that I will never ever be a wrestler ever.
I'm always amused by people because Dwayne is a big guy, and it's funny. People go, "Oh yeah, I've seen you on TV before." Hey, you lying? Well, stop. You ain't never. But
so the MVP character has, in the last couple years, developed a new piece of hardware, the cane. Is that based on injury?
So that came about because initially, during the pandemic period, during the Thunderdome era,
Pandemic P.
Pandemic P was a menace. During the Thunderdome era, we had a match where my good friend, the ultimate bro,
Riddle.
yeah, Matt Riddle, they were really getting him over at the time. So we had a match where he ended up beating me, Cedric, and Shelton. So we had to put it together where we kind of had like some internal riffing where he was able to capitalize on us kind of beefing to beat us. And at the end, he rolled me up and he grabbed me in a heel hook. And for those of you that don't know, a heel hook is a potentially lethal, legitimate move where all the tendons and ligaments in your knee can be ripped out if the person who's executing it wants to. I've been in jiu-jitsu tournaments where I've seen guys that didn't tap fast enough. It's a sickening sound when you hear that ripping, popping sound. Well, in this case, I had on wrestling boots, and he grabbed the heel hook, and there was no malice on his part. He didn't mean to hurt me. It was a complete accident. But when he cinched up on it, I felt my knee pop.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, damn, And come to find out, we had an MRI, and I had a torn meniscus. Well, in my right knee, prior to that, I had already torn my meniscus in that same exact spot twice before. So for years, I was always wearing the knee brace and all that because I'd had knee issues. And then I had to go out, and I think it was the following week, and do a match. But they taped everything up heavily, and the doctor said, okay, we're gonna let you do this match, but don't do too much. And I went out and I tore the other side that night.
Oh man.
So both sides of the meniscus and that knee were torn.
No, I've never experienced that. Is that painful?
Very painful. Very painful. It's not like tearing ligaments or tendons, but it is still very painful. And it's difficult to walk, very ginger, but it's not, you can still walk. It's just extremely painful.
And this is live on television.
Live on TV. So you just kind of suck it up and get through it. And then I went and got an MRI, and they were like, "Yeah, you tore both sides, the ligament on both sides, or the cartilage, the meniscus. Thank you to our good friend Chad, our videographer off screen. The meniscus. So the problem was we were real hot at the time, and management said, "Do you want surgery?" Of course, I don't want surgery right now. The last thing I want is surgery, as well as everything's going. So then when we had some more time, they were like, "Hey, can you put that surgery off a little bit longer?" And I'm like, yeah. So I ended up working like that for 9 months.
9 months.
And it
you're
was
feeling the pain.
Oh, the pain, it sometimes was excruciating.
Is it the leg that you go up for the kick with?
Yes, it is. That's my right one, yeah. So, and there were some nights where they had, who knows why? I still don't know. They had me and Bobby booked in an advertised dark main event. Like, why are you putting me? You know that I need surgery on my knee.
Right on.
But initially, I had a crutch.
I remember the crutch.
But the crutch didn't look right with the suit and everything. It was really clashing. So I got it. I actually had like an orthopedic cane. And then I was like, this doesn't look good, you know. So I went and got like a real sporty cane. So initially, I needed the cane to walk. But it didn't take long before I didn't need the cane anymore. But everybody on social media, our friends are like, "Don't ditch the cane, don't ditch the cane."
What's that at the top? It's like a skull or something.
Well, it depends. I had one with a skull. I had one with a lion. I had a few different canes. I had one that had a skull with a crown on it. There's a few different ones. And it's funny because I hadn't needed that cane in years, but I continue to use it. And I laugh because I see on, social media comments on my Instagram or Twitter, they're like, "Oh man, you didn't need that cane. We thought you really needed that cane." I'm like, "You are a mark." I didn't need that cane. I didn't need that cane for years. But for that 9-month period in the beginning where I was working hurt, and then after the initial, when I came back from my surgery, I did need the cane.
Okay.
But it's become a part of the image now. Montel Vontavious Porter and the cane and the whole kingpin kind of image with the syndicate. So it's an aesthetic part of the gimmick now. It's not necessary. It's not needed, but it's become. It's just become a part of the whole deal now, right?
So who handles flights and hotels, and does the company book and pay for this, and is there a per diem for food?
Okay, again, it depends on where you work, what company you work for. Before I say another word, how good is this Devil's River agave bourbon? And again, disclaimer, Devil's River is a company that my good friend, my brother, Dave Batista, is a part owner of. They didn't pay us any money for this. We just, every episode, we're gonna sip bourbon, scotch, whatever, while we talk. And this time we chose this. But this Devil's River bourbon agave is delicious. Oh, it's amazing.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. So, to answer your question, if you work for a major wrestling company, they will generally pay for your, well, wait a minute, hold on. Because if you're also an independent wrestling company, usually most of the lower independent companies will at least give you some money towards your trans. If you're driving in, if you have enough of a name that they're flying you in, then they'll usually pay for your airfare and hotel and whatever your fee is. I can say, I don't know how NWA or MLW do it specifically. I'd never worked for NWA and I haven't been in MLW forever. But I know they would fly the talent in and put them up and then pay them. I know with AEW and WWE, there are two very big differences. WWE will fly you in,
Okay.
but you're responsible for your hotel. They don't give you any money for a per diem, but if WWE, for example, television or pay-per-view they provide catering. So they provide food for you at the day. There was a time there where WWE was doing budget cuts, and I don't remember who the company was, but the catering was awful. Like it seemed like the company they hired was doing budget cuts too, and they were trying to feed us all of them.
So they're flying like with you guys? So it's the same set of folks making food?
Every week we see those people, and these companies they do like the catering for like concerts and so they're used to doing mobile catering for touring entertainment type services. I remember for a brief period the catering was so bad, I ordered like several boxes of Popeye's chicken and sides, and I had it brought to the catering room. And I told everybody, hey, you guys want to eat some real food here?
Eat this.
It was that bad.
Yeah.
And then eventually they kind of changed things, and that company was out, and the old company was back, and the food was much better. Same thing with AEW. They have catering, and they have like a really good catering company. So the food is always great.
Well, I know that I've been lucky enough to experience the AEW catering with so quick side note, I had Trill Burgers for the very first time.
Yeah.
Bun B came over. He was there filming something for AEW. He asked Chad and I how the burgers were. My mouth was so greasy and full of burger, man. I was like, yo, this is delicious, Bun B.
Listen, I'll say this, and shout out to Bun B, because he's always been very hospitable anytime I've ever been to Trill Burger. I can say this, and I'm not getting paid to say this. There's no compensation whatsoever. I don't like the sauce, so I'll get the Trill Burger without the sauce. But Trill Burger is the best fast food burger I have ever had. Camden, my son, agrees. It's his favorite burger, and the fries are good.
I finished every single, and Chad was saying, have you tried it? He asked me like 4 or 5 times. I was like, not yet, Chadrick. I haven't yet. I ate all the fries first, then the burger.
Because a lot of places, the fries, they're all right, the burger. But Trill Burger, the burgers are the best. Yeah, you with that In-N-Out bullshit, go ahead on, because Trill Burger. And my son is always, Daddy, can we go back to Trill Burger? Can we go back to Trill Burger? And anytime if you're in Houston, if you try to go to Trill Burger, there's a line, a long line. There might not be a place for you to park. They got people monitoring the parking.
That's what took me so long to try it. But walking in with you at catering, I was like, oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
Now I can have it.
So, but that was specifically because AEW was doing Collision from Rosenberg, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. They were advertising it as Houston, but Houstonians know Rosenberg is not Houston. But back to the original question and point. Both WWE and AEW provide catering for TV and pay-per-views. There's no per diem for food. The primary difference between the two companies is that AEW will fly you in, and I don't know, this is an assumption on my part, but I'm thinking because the Khan family own the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham FC, I think they do the team hotel concept. With WWE, they'll fly you to the city, but you're responsible for your own hotel. And you're responsible for your own transportation to and from the venue. And then they will fly you back home. AEW will fly you to the television city. They put everybody up at a team hotel. So you don't pay for your hotel at the AEW. And then unless it's in your contract that you have a car service, which some guys do, they provide a team bus or a shuttle, which will take you from the hotel to the building for the television or the pay-per-view. And then with AEW, towards the end of the night, they'll have multiple shuttles leaving at different times. Because if you finish early, then there's a shuttle leaving at this time. So they'll have multiple shuttles taking you from the building back to the hotel.
Understood.
And then you're responsible for getting yourself from the hotel to the airport. And usually there's a shuttle. Sometimes there's not a shuttle from the airport to the hotel, so you got to catch an Uber. It's a small expense when you consider you don't have to pay for your hotel. And no, there's no per diem, but there's food for you. And at the end of the night too, the catering department, they will set up the food that's left over, and there's all kinds of snacks and drinks, and they'll have to go I don't know what like containers with a top. So if you want to take some food with you back to the room, or
Is that the same catering company at AEW that travels show to show?
yes.
Oh, so you're familiar with the taste of the food?
Yeah. And then it's really good quality, and they do healthy food, tasty food. They got all kinds of snacks, and like I brought my son Camden with me, and he was stuffing his pockets with candy and all kinds. I'm like, hey, take it easy, man.
I didn't get a chance to make it over there because that damn Trill Burger was so good. I was good. All right, so those are AEW, WWE, 2 US based.
Did I mention how good this Devil's River agave bourbon is?
It's amazing. Delicious. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
So WWE, AEW, 2 US based companies. What about the cultural difference for New Japan? Is there a difference there?
Very big difference. New Japan, when I was there, I don't know how much has changed, but when I was there, get your ass on the bus. Just get on the bus. Because the bus, they have a touring bus that will take you to the building, to the hotel. They don't provide food. So typically, and this is one of my favorite things about Japanese culture, and this is one of the first things I learned, and it was really cool. Because my very first tour, MVP son, late for bus. Which I'm never late. I'm never, I'm very good about that professionally, but the night before I went to Roppongi and had lots of drinks, and I called downstairs for a wake-up call, which I didn't get. I promise you, I didn't get my wake-up call. And I knock at the door, I wake up, I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, no. But it was fine. I didn't get in any trouble. But in Japanese culture, they have a saying, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're fired. But over there, all you got to do is be there for the bus. You get on the bus. The bus is going to take you to the building, to the hotel, to the next town. They'll stop along the way at, Japan has a very intricate system of highways and rest stops where they have food and everything. A lot of the time, as the boys who have worked in Japan know, conveni. They have convenience stores there. They have a 7-Eleven over there, but you wouldn't recognize it compared to 7-Eleven here. Lawson's and I think Family Mart are like the big 3 convenience stores, but they have food, warm food. And a lot of the time while you're on the road in Japan, the buses will stop and they'll pull into either the road stop where, again, a very interesting thing about Japanese culture, they have a vending machine and they have all the food that you might want, and you'll pay into it and you hit the button and a ticket comes out and you take the ticket to the window or the counter or whatever, and you give them that ticket, and then they'll give you that food that you ordered from the machine. So it's not where you go and someone takes your order, you pick what you want, boom, the ticket comes out, you give it, they prepare the food. And so that was different. That took some getting used to. I was like, oh, that's neat. My love for ramen was born during my time in Japan. And it was crazy because that was before ramen was popular over here. So I would be in Japan and I fell in love with ramen. And then I would come home and there was nowhere to get ramen. And for those of you who think ramen is those 20-cent, 25-cent packets, yeah, that's kind of what ramen is. Or if you get the Nissin cup of noodles, that's kind of ramen. But if you haven't had real, authentic Japanese ramen with the broth that's been cooking for 24 hours, it's a completely different experience. Like your taste buds will throw a party. It's crazy. But in Houston, I used to go from my house at Northgate Forest all the way to Chinatown off of, what is that?
Beltway, Bissonnette.
No, not Bissonnette. What is
Bel Air, maybe.
Bel Air.
Yeah.
And then there was a place, and I don't remember the name now, but it was the only place in Houston that you could get authentic Japanese ramen. And I remember I brought my friend Gosh there. when he came to visit. Remember Gosh? Yeah. I brought Gosh, Tsuyoshi-san. I brought him and I said, Gosh, I want you to try this ramen. Tell me if judge it for me. And Gosh ate the ramen. He goes, oh, MVP-san, so good ramen, good ramen. He said, but you know good ramen. You're almost Japanese. Your opinion, same, And then right next door to that place, they opened up a place called Tiger Den Ramen. I haven't been there in quite some time, but it was amazing because they combined not just the ramen, but also the, not yakiniku, yakitori, where they have, it's like a grill where they cook chicken and skewered food on a stick. So they had ramen and that. And it was amazing. It was so good that I stopped going to the place next door. Cool. And then it got to the point where you had to sign a list, and it was a waiting list to get in. And now in Houston, ramen is so popular, you can throw a rock and hit a good ramen spot almost anywhere. So that was how I fell in love with ramen. But back to the original question and to summarize, in Japan, they didn't provide any food for you. There was no catering at the building. You're responsible for feeding yourself. And WWE, there's no per diem. They'll fly you to the host city and home. You're responsible for getting to and from the building, and they would provide catering at the building. AEW, Tony Khan pretty much rolls out the red carpet. He'll fly you into the city. Most places you can catch a shuttle to the hotel where they put everybody up, a team hotel, and then they pay for a team bus to get you from the hotel to the building. And then once you're done, there's several shuttles from the building back to the hotel. And then you have a flight that they pay for to get you back home. Did I mention how good this agave bourbon?
You see, mine's almost on E.
Listen, I'm going to go ahead and, this is episode 2. And I'll be honest with you. This is the second episode that we shot today. We just started this, but I just want you to see how much of this we've had to drink between episode 1 and episode 2. So I am not being paid, not being compensated in any way, shape, or form. This stuff is good. And of course, the more we drink, the easier it becomes to tell these stories and, lubricate the vocal cords, if you will. And this Devil's River. Hey, Dave, we're going to need a case of this sent to my house, please. And on that note, I got to say, man, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Just 2 episodes in, and I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man. I think this is another one of your great ideas.
Well, it was a great idea that was spawned by you always asking me damn questions about, hey, what about this? Tell me about that. Tell me about that. But listen, if you're watching, if you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much. We want to bring this to you on a weekly basis. And, Dwayne Swayze is a great friend of mine. We've done lots of work together in the music space, and now we're trying something new. So I'm going to be one of those annoying people, and I'm going to say, if you like this, please subscribe. Like, comment, and as I see people out, hit that little bell thing so you can be informed when the new episode drops.
Notifications.
But we'll bring you a new episode every week of Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze, where we will discuss the questions you always wanted to know. And when we get to a certain point, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you will get to submit your questions, and Swayze will read your question and I'll answer it. And hopefully by that time I've had enough of some bourbon or scotch that I'll give you the real deal without any editing or filtering, because my filter usually doesn't work anyway, so What do you say, Dwayne? Shall we take it home?
Take it home.
Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze.
Later, guys.
Cheers.
I just lay back in something new. Whiskey 21 and over, low ball. Make it too neat. Dizzer from Harlem. Yeah, I'm from Houston, off of Fondren. Mike Mazan and real world flow. Plant these seeds in the streets and in weeks. Watch it blossom. Dark night, riding on chrome, swinging through Gotham. It's me and P. Repaving these roads, I feel like Cody. Shot a fiend the 8th, I heard it's yell Kobe, I reserve the right. You get what you deserve. Enjoy this full circle moment as the turntables turn. Sharing pies call ace every time we serve. Your fight or flight bout to spike, hands off, still touching nerves. Y'all got the gall. I'm running this route without the ball. P called the play, now we trending like Logan Paul. The we got in store can't be purchased in the mall. 50 and 0 like Floyd.